If you watch our videos in Social 118, you know that I'm trying not to impose my own belief system onto students. That what we're trying to do in this classroom, in this space right here, is to give students opportunities to think on their own terms and to understand the ways in which ideas and thoughts that come at them are often slanted in one direction or another. Our sponsor this semester, our very first sponsor, is Ground.News. It's the perfect sponsor for this class, and I'm really happy to endorse them, and I'm happy to get behind them. If you subscribe for Ground.News using the code in the description, the link in the description, you get 40% off the Vantage plan. That's the plan that we use in here. And I can't say enough how important this is and how valuable it is to have a better understanding of the ways in which news is coming at you and the ideological perspectives that people are taking who are sharing the news. So sign up for Ground.News. It's awesome. Like, I hope all of my students sign up for Ground.News, actually. We're rocking. We are here.
We're rocking.
Nice to see you, Elijah. I haven't seen you in a while.
Oh, it's been a little bit because we're not seeing each other every Tuesday and Thursday now.
Damn. I just looking at Stephen K. 20 hours of working to write a presentation, man. Damn. I've had those. I don't do them in Penn State, or I don't do that. I don't have to do that for 119, thankfully. That would destroy me, man. But Stevens was saying that he had worked 20 hours on a presentation for work. Man, I do that sometimes when I'm like in Korea, maybe not 20 hours, but I had a couple that I'll bet I worked 20 hours on, actually.
You were locked in. You were talking about that for a while when you were prepping.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, man. You know, you have to like think about a lot of different things. Well, it gives me an opportunity to think outside the box. So in a way that I don't in class. I mean, I'm always thinking in class about how to present things in a way that I think will be best heard by students, you know, and by people on the stream. And the stream complicates it because I have examples and things that I would do in class. If everybody watching the class was the same age, you know, they were all between like, you know, say 18 and 23 or something, then there are things that I would talk about and ways I would inject certain ideas that I can't do because the age range is so different. But
Interesting.
yeah. Anyway, how you doing?
Good. Good. We're almost about to have orientation for World in Conversation, and the students had my first little observation corner because I'm a part of the observation team at Wink. So inform the students on what that is. We have some new students that are coming onto the team to be observers, and they're also on the facilitation team. So introduced them in class today. So yeah, it's good. We're rocking and rolling at Wink, and we're about to get ready and start dialogues with your students.
Yo,
So,
man.
Dude, and you got a new curtain behind you, so now you're not getting blasted by the sun all day. It's fantastic.
I don't have to sit on the other.
Dude,
Yo,
you're on cloud nine
I don't
now.
have to sit on the other side of the desk. Yeah, I'm gonna get a rug in the office too. I'm just so excited.
Ooh, moving up
Oh,
in the
and
world.
also the desk, when you come in, that you'll see the desk is positioned differently. So there's a nice little floor, you know, an area where I'll have a rug, and because Pedro, people can sit in his office, and I want that. I want to have like little seat chairs where we can all chill. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Moving up in the world.
That's the vibe.
Well, I feel good. I feel good about this semester. It feels like we have a very engaged group of students. We have a full house. It's almost it's about 800 people in the room, and yeah, it's cool. It just feels like there's good energy in the room, man. Like a lot of really good energy. People are really paying attention, and I think we'll have a cool class tomorrow. We're going to do something on just our differences, physiological differences, and yeah, it'll be cool. I like it. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
How was class yesterday on the
Good.
on
Yeah, good.
cheating?
Yeah. Yeah, we did
Yeah.
critical thinking, and I felt like the three students who participated were all very really thoughtful. Like really, like I feel like I could have picked anybody out, most anybody, and
Mhm.
they they would have have had similarly thoughtful conversations about critical thinking. Like people want to do it. Like they often don't know how to do it, and oftentimes, like we think that we're being more thoughtful than we are, or we think we're being more open-minded than we are, or we want to see ourselves in the best light, and people understand that
Mhm.
they need to be open and they want to be open, and very few people feel like they want to just be closed down and shut off to anything. At least I don't
Mhm.
find that among college students. But
Mhm.
sometimes people have, can there are certain things that they're much less willing to consider, and they don't
Right.
even realize it till you sort of bring it up to them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like
Were those
I think one of the volunteers yesterday where, I was talking about ice, and I'm like, look, there's like all sorts of people out there that can make amazing arguments for why, what ice is doing. It's kind of has to happen. It's unfortunate, but it's good. It's necessary. I mean, some
Mhm.
of the extreme stuff, obviously, but just, the thoughtful, like people have to leave, that kind of thing. Well,
Right.
you don't have to agree with it, but the idea being that do you know those people? Have you read those people? And like it took her a minute to be able to realize that shit, I I would have to entertain that. Like, and there are certain ideas that I just don't want to entertain that I would have to entertain. And
Right. She was
and
saying I would have to entertain it. What does she mean by
yeah,
it?
like,
What does
well,
she mean?
or like, we were talking about, I mean, a range of things, like, yeah, um, uh, yeah, just entertaining certain ideas that on one
Mhm.
hand we would just be like, no, I'm open to lots of things, but there's this whole realm of reality I'm not going to entertain. I'm not going to really consider that. And
Right.
critical thinking means, well, you may not have to consider it, but you may not have to go there. You don't have to go there, but you better know the arguments well enough that you can understand what they are and be able to respond to them. Because,
Mhm.
one of the problems is that, with this in this world in which we're living, what we do is we only hear from these talking heads who aren't exceptionally thoughtful, but you don't
Right.
hear from the really smart people on the extremes, let's say, right? Who are
Mhm.
really far right or far left. There are some really smart people who are on those extremes. And so they're going to say some things that are going to be very, very challenging. And it's easy to just hear the not very smart people and be like, yeah, okay, fine,
Write it
screw
off.
them. But man, the smart ones. And that's where my
Mhm.
students, all three of them, were like, all right, hang on a minute, man. Yeah, no.
Oh, like, I have to consider this because what you're
Yeah, like,
saying
I'm not
makes
sure that
sense. There's, like,
like
sense to what
tariffs,
you're saying.
we talked about tariffs. Yeah. So the point being, yeah, and then they were a little bit far more, w wanting to say that, well, some people have expertise in things, like Sam, have expertise in this, what I'm teaching, and I'm like, I don't have expertise in this, man. Like, where's my expertise? Like, well, but the university thinks you do. I'm like, well, the university has to hire somebody. So this is the point. You know what I mean? Like, we are professors. We're mostly just people like you who sit in these classes and they write notes and they
Mhm.
write notes and they write notes and they spit it back on exams and quizzes and so on. And they do that for an additional 6 or 7 years, and
Right.
then you become vetted. Like, all right, you now go teach. I
Right.
That's
Mhm.
not. No, I don't know, man. Okay, but
Yeah. No, and I think it's great that you're the one that's teaching this class because I've talked to students before, saying that, you know, um, they're in some classes where there's one professor that has a certain view. I think it was like maybe a women's studies class or something like that. And a professor has a particular view that's different than the views of some of the students. And they just feel like in order to get through the class, they have to conform to the beliefs of that professor,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and it makes it really uncomfortable for them. And maybe they feel like they're not actually learning
Yeah.
or,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, instead of, I mean, and maybe it makes it harder for them to like consider because the professors aren't considering both sides or the multiple aspects.
Yeah.
But you're
You
giving
know,
opportunity for,
okay, but you know, students
yeah.
used to say that about me, right? Like, "Oh, I just had to figure out what it is that you wanted from us." I'm like, "Wait, hang on a minute.
Mhm.
I don't want anything. I want you to think."
Yeah.
This is going back 20
Yeah.
years or 25 years, right? They would still say that. And I'm like, "Wait, hang on a second. You're misunderstanding me completely because that is not that is not in play."
Mm,
So when I
so
hear
that's what's
students say
happening.
that,
Mhm.
yeah, when I hear students say that
Mhm.
about certain professors, I'm always like, "Well, I'm not I don't it may not be the case. Have you ever gone to their office hours and talked to them?" Sometimes what happens
Right.
is we just teach, we give information, and
Mhm.
then or we professors, we give information to you, students like you,
Mhm.
and then you think, "Oh, this is their perspective.
Right.
This is Sam's perspective, so I just gotta understand this perspective and feed it back to him." And when in fact, no, my pedagogy, my classroom pedagogy is that I think I need to give you information, and I try to give you a certain amount of information, but you understand it's like it's all over the place to make some sort of cohesive sense out of the topic
Mhm.
that we're discussing in class. I got to take a some kind of perspective because otherwise I'd just be like if thens and every class would just be filled with if thens. Oh, it could be this and it could be that. So anyway,
Mhm.
then you start having this idea. It's like, well, this guy is giving me this information. Sounds like it's coming from a certain perspective. So therefore I just got to feed it back to him.
Right.
And then you don't feed it back to me. And I'm like, okay, that's wrong. That's wrong. You got that wrong. And you're like, oh, I didn't give it to him exactly like he wanted it. Well,
Yeah.
what happened was, no, it's not how I wanted it. It's how I presented it. And you've shown that you didn't understand what it is that I presented. And so therefore, check, you got it wrong. Right. And
Mhm.
that's really different than saying this is the truth and you didn't say the truth like I said the truth. And so
Mhm.
this is the problem with teaching that we're in is that when your teaching is built around a certain series of ideas and a certain amount of information, then you're gonna what students respond to, how they respond is going to be right or wrong according to the
Right.
information you gave because you didn't memorize it correctly, therefore it's wrong.
Mhm.
And that's the problem with people when we teach like that. It's seen as that we're teaching a certain ideology and we're not. We're just trying to we just got to give A's, B's, C's, and D's out. So I'm like, fuck, I have no other way to do that. But like, you spit it back to me in the way that I said it in the classroom. Okay, great, that was perfect. You get an A. Right. I'm like, all
Mhm.
right.
Mhm. Mhm. That's interesting how like instead of just perceiving it as like them presenting information and then trying to and like interpret, understand, and then reflect back in a way that say, oh yeah, you've accurately reflected what I've tried to present. It's like
Yep.
they feel this pressure to like conform, and if they don't conform, then they with their peers, they're like,
Exactly.
oh, they have to conform with their
Yep.
peers, and maybe other peers have that same mindset as the professor, and oh, if I don't, then I'll be exiled, or I won't be, my professor won't like me, or
It's,
students won't like me, or I don't know.
yep. I love it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's exactly it, man. And so I think that I don't doubt that there are some. And by the way, that is a very wait. Hang on, I'm looking at something. A Western attitude. Uh, yeah, you know, I think that there are. I have no doubt, and I know that there are professors who push their ideas and say like, I've been vetted by the university where I got my PhD. Um, the university where I work has hired me to teach my ideas, and I'm going to put my ideas out there. And you got to you have to learn my ideas. And I'm a professor, and these are my ideas, and I think they're the best ideas, and I've been trained, my whole life to come up with this. And so like, okay, well, that I first off, I see how that happens, right? And
You see
and
how
I
that
have no
happens?
doubt yeah, that people just come up with a very kind of narrow way of seeing stuff because it's hard you can't teach you can't teach a wide range of perspectives, man. There's not enough time. I got 15 weeks to talk about sociology. Do you know how much, what it would take? I would need 15 years to really do a nice job. And so I got 15 weeks. So, okay.
Right.
So I'm going to grab
Mhm.
something. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to try to be as open as I can. But in the end, because we're memorizing, I'm going to grade you on whether you learned what it is that I told you to memorize. Yo, by the way, when I used
Mhm.
to teach like 400 level classes and I'd have, like 40 students or 50 or 60 students, I
Mhm.
rarely ever had less than 30. A few times I did. It was really quite fun just to sit in a circle and talk. But I've had
That's
students when we had blue book exams, they would write, they would answer questions on these blue book exams that I'm just like, they must have had some kind of
What's a blue book exam?
blue book, these little booklets. See, you don't even know that. Oh my God, that shows you your age. Yeah, just these little
My
booklets.
God, you're calling me young because I've been called old
Yeah,
around here.
just with line pages, man. Just like that. Just you buy them at the bookstore, and then you just take them to class, and you fill them up with whatever it is you're writing.
Got
And
it.
and sometimes, man, I swear to you, they would write, and it sounded like my own speaking. They'd fill up a blue book. It was just brilliant. And I'm like, how'd you do that? How'd you remember that? How'd you do it? How'd you put it in such an awesome way? And I'd have to give him an A, even though I felt like I'm not sure you actually really got this or whatever, but you have some kind of memory device going on that you're able to
Right.
spit back. It's brilliant. It felt like I'm like, I gotta hang on to this because this is a brilliant
Like
summary. The
this is
whole
my
semester.
life's yeah, this is my whole
This is my
it's
brain right there.
right, literally. It's like they're just like transcribing you.
Exactly.
They're
No,
literally to
exactly.
transcribe. Wow.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. It's a very kind of it's an odd thing. And
What's
but
an
the
odd
whole
thing?
yeah,
The whole
the whole endeavor is really rather odd.
like the pedagogy, like the way that most classrooms are teaching, like the approach to
Well,
teaching. Is that what you mean? Is
I think what the students yesterday confirmed is that far too many of their classes just require them to take in information and spit it back, and it's
right.
not very uplifting. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no, it should. Ziesendorf is laughing at you. Right? What's a blue book? Yeah, you grew up in this age with computers, man. You didn't have blue books. So what we had, and all these books were blue, and they were bigger than this right here. So they were maybe like a little larger than half of a 8.5 by 11. And they would have like, 16 to 20 pages lined, and you would buy them for 15 cents or 20 cents. Or by the time we ended, I think the price got up to about 40 cents by the time we stopped selling them in bookstores. But you go to the bookstore and you buy your books, and then you just buy a stack of blue books for essay exam. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So blue.
This is so you're talking about the 5 Star notebook. They sell I had those. I think it was a brand called 5 Star, and it was just like real
Yeah,
thick
yeah, yeah.
notebooks, and
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then some of them even had sections, like they'd be separated by like one thick construction paper piece to like
Yeah.
divide, and
Yeah.
then I'd have like my
Those are
different
those
sections in
are
class.
yeah, those are these notebooks. These are ones you just turn them into the professor. You write your exam answers on 'em and
Oh,
turn them in. And then we
okay.
knew that you couldn't write it ahead of time because, you had it in a blue book. I mean, it was an empty book, like this.
Right.
Yeah, and that was it. When you were done, I'd hand it back to you, and then you'd just throw it away. Some people probably saved them, but I doubt many did. All right, man. Listen, let's look at some questions from yesterday or office hours one. We have we have one, not Bob. Yeah. So this that first one, slide number 2, Jeff. Yeah, here we go. We'll go. I see as a matter of perspective, when I hear Trump talk about actions against Colombia, I take it as against the corruption and the cartels and drug lords, not against Colombia. Yeah. And any action against those people would be better for all of Colombia and the United States. Yeah, the problem is that if I respond to this, well, I guess I can respond to it. The problem is Colombia's been working very, very closely with the United States for the past 40 years to deal with these drug lords and a certain amount of corruption by some of the policies of the United States. So, I mean, this is one of the problems. But sure, Colombians, certainly the government right now, Petro has been working quite close, continue to work very closely with the U.S. to deal with the issue of drugs. And one of the reasons that Colombia has been able to curtail drug sales and the power of the cartels is because of, man, I'm going to keep, hang on a second.
You need some water?
Dang, man. Yeah, is because we have had a really good relationship, and that relationship has continued. So anyway, that would be my response to not Bob. Hang on, I got to get some gum.
Yeah.
Man. All right, let's go to our next question from, I guess it's yesterday's class. All right, Thursday. Oh, the cheating class. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Cheating, man. Eric from Philly said, would it be hypocritical for a teacher or professor to use AI to create their syllabus or classes, but prevents their students from using AI to complete assignments? Yeah, yeah, but even it depends on what the assignment is, right? I mean, this is part of the problem. Even I'm not doing it, Elijah. I don't know if you're doing it, but I know some folks at
What?
World in Conversation have been really using AI to make great Excel documents and
Not Excel, but other things. Like Word
other
documents and
certain organized documents. And I think that what we're finding is that a lot of people in certain industries and certain areas inside of universities are telling students, listen, you need to be able to use AI to do this. It's kind of like,
wait, to do what? You need to be able to use AI to do what?
To organize different documents. Like you really need to be able to use it, because what's going to happen is we can say like, yes, you need to learn how to make Excel documents from the bottom up, let's say, right? But rarely do people do that anymore. You start with a more if you understand Excel, you start with a more complicated document, and then you use AI to make it even more complicated quickly.
Right.
So you need to learn that, man. You know what I mean? But
Complicated how? Like, what do you mean by it?
just better. Make all your cells and your sheets, make everything line up in much more complicated ways. It's pretty cool. It's pretty intense. So there's just so many things. If you're not learning AI, and one of the problems is that a lot of people are not.
Right.
Right now you're okay, but 5 years from now, you might be left behind by not really understanding some of this stuff.
And then it's like, what does it mean to learn AI? Do you mean like learning how to prompt AI, like the
Yeah,
correct
how to
ways to
prompt it.
prompt, or
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
yeah, or like agentic systems? Because like Pedro and I were getting into that for a little bit, like
Yep.
building agentic systems to then just do the tasks for you, you know? But
Ye-
so many different ways to, I guess, like learning AI. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Like our registration system and how best to manage that. And, you could spend half a day figuring out how to put all the different groups together and how to manage which days of the week. You have your team, like you have all your facilitators, right? And you have their schedules.
Yep.
And what we used to do is we'd have, like 60 facilitators and they would give us their schedules. And then we'd say, like, okay, then we'd know when the groups were. And then we'd say, okay, well, now we want to try to have a man and a woman co-facilitate. We want to try
And
to have
veterans and newbies together.
a white person and somebody of color and some way. It's someone who's of, yeah. So we want to try to do that. We want to try to have people that we think have somewhat different perspectives and different styles. We want to have advanced facilitators and less advanced facilitators. So you have all
Yeah.
these things, and then you sit down on a big table and you spend 2 days trying to put a schedule together. But now
Oh my gosh.
you learn how to put that in AI, man. In like 5 minutes, you got your schedule.
Yeah, that's one of the systems we were trying to create, like one of the agentic systems where an AI agent would just create the schedule. You put in the students' names with like little variables and not their
Yeah.
actual name, just for like confidentiality, and then boom, they just like make one up. And I can only
Well,
imagine because right now Joy's working with 16 students, but 60. Oh man,
60, man.
that's
And so, you think about that. Think about someone, you got now some old school professors saying, like, you can't use any of that stuff. You have to go spread all your stuff out on a table and spend a whole weekend coming up with the best possible schedule because I'm trying to teach you this thinking. And I'm like, dude, that's like teaching people how to feed a horse, even though we all drive cars now. But you got to know how to take care of your horse because for years we used horses for transportation, right? So you still should know how to care for your horses and how to hook them up to your wagon. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, we've been driving cars for 30 years. And it's like, dude, we're never going to be using horses like that anymore. So like,
yeah.
you really need to stop. But some
Not unless
people,
you're Amish.
unless you're Amish, man, if you want to join an Amish community. All right, man, you can bring him on, dog. Yeah. Wait, is he gonna be on video or just audio? All right, okay, cool, man. Yeah. All right, okay. All right, so we got Steven, uh, and, Philosophaster from Oregon said, "If you're writing a paper, where's the line between using a tool and cheating with AI?" Dude, where's the line with spell check? Like once spell check came out, mostly for us professors, it was like, oh, please use spell check. It's just so much easier if you get all your spelling correct. You know what I mean?
Uh,
But
is
like, well, how is that? Like, you don't have to. That's
that
cheating in a way, right?
you think so?
Well, I don't. I don't know. It's not cheating, but it's like you're cutting a corner just using spell checker. So AI is
Right.
really in a way not that different. It's kind of, you
From
know,
like a spelling to creating whole like sentences and paragraphs, and I'm just being the
well,
devil's advocate here, but I don't
no,
know.
no,
Like
okay. Where's the line? You're on a slippery slope,
right.
right? You're up here
Yeah.
and you go like, okay, well, it'll be okay. Yeah, spelling is okay. And well, what about the order of your pronouns and like all sorts of stuff, man. It's just you start sliding down the slope, and before you know it, it's like okay. Anyway,
Mhm.
but I think you need to learn to spell? Well, I don't know. Do you? How
Mhm.
often?
Mhm.
When?
Right.
When? when do you need to learn to spell?
And
Really?
then like how much does writing correlate to like your ability to organize your thoughts and create like a sequence,
Yeah.
or like be able to have like this big picture idea and like narrow it down, or
Yeah.
like the order of a paper.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So there are a lot of people who are thinking about all this kind of stuff, man. You and I we're just going around the surface on it. There are people
Yeah.
they're like,
I don't really want to talk about
so I'm just throwing some stuff out there. But anyway,
it.
go back to also one, either Stephen or Philosophy Faster wrote, is it because you want to cheat, or does it come from laziness, or is it just natural? Maybe it's also just natural. Cheating is just, it's not really cheating, it's just cutting corners. Let's just cut corners. Like
Mhm.
why? In a way, right? Like if I'm in a class and the professor says, copy all this stuff down that's on the overhead, and in 4 weeks we have an exam, make sure you memorize it and come back and spit it back on an exam. And I know, and the professor knows, that I'm never going to remember it. By the end of the semester, I will have forgotten it all.
Mhm.
And if the professor doesn't know that, the professor's foolish. And the professor clearly fucking never went to school, because,
Right.
like, come on, man. You
I was
ask
just
anybody, what do you remember from college? Okay. So anyway,
Pedro and I were just talking about that this morning. I was like, I
Mm.
don't remember half the stuff,
Dude,
more than
half
half the stuff that
stuff.
I
I
learned.
remember 3 things. I famously say I remember 3 things from my undergraduate college. So, uh, then therefore, why wouldn't you cheat? Like, why would
Mhm.
you waste your time memorizing something when you could be reading some really interesting novel or something? Like, why
Right.
would you do that?
Right.
And a natural part could also be the natural
Mhm.
evolution of technology. Like you said, Sam, when spell check came out, like that wasn't even a thought in my head as something that could be considered cheating, because it was just part of my entire undergrad and most of my high school
Yeah.
was like, hey, I'm going to write out this, paragraph. Okay, well, I was writing really quickly, and of course, when I typed in TATH, I meant that, but I spelled it
Yeah.
incorrectly. So I'm just going to go back and check it. But like, I mean, well, back in your day, I guess you had to look up in a dictionary if you needed to find out how to spell a word. But even for me, I had Google. Like I could just Google the word instead and
Yeah.
find the correct spelling. And I could find out, oh, actually you can spell it 4 different ways or whatever because of the different forms of English. Or
Yeah.
so,
I
yeah.
had I in my book bag always was a dictionary and a thesaurus. Every time I went to school, I had my books and I had a little dictionary and a small thesaurus. I was just part of
Do
life.
people know what a thesaurus is?
Do you know what a thesaurus is, bro?
Yeah, I know what it is.
Of course he does. He
Yeah.
makes music.
But I don't say what it is. I'm like, I know. No, it's isn't that the thesaurus is it's what gives us our synonyms, right? And it
Yeah, synonyms, yeah, and antonyms, actually,
and
both.
antonyms.
Yeah,
Yeah. I used to
yeah.
love the
Yeah,
thesaurus.com when I was writing.
it's like,
Yo,
yeah.
what does it
And
mean
then
about
there was
qualification?
I think this
Go ahead.
yeah, Tristan Mike says, yeah, it was also in Jurassic, it was starred in Jurassic Park too, man. A thesaurus. You know,
That's funny.
that's crazy. Like, it in my undergraduate years, we had these rooms in the library with typewriters, and they were soundproof rooms, and people would be in there, like pounding away on
What,
typewriters,
typewriters?
literally typewriters. Yeah. And so
Yeah,
you
there
just
were
have
no
to bring
computers
blank
yet?
paper. No, you bring your own blank paper and you put it in, and that's how you have to, because you have to submit your papers almost always. They have to be typed. But if you didn't have a typewriter at home, you would go to the school and do it. And well, we had
How old
these.
were you?
This was between 1978 and 1983. Word processing started to really hit at my university in 1984. Is when
Wow.
we had our first computers where you could type something out and print it. So, yeah. So, that was like But my mom had a dictation business, so I grew up with typewriters in my basement. So, you know, then it was like really pretty
What's a
awesome. And I
dictation
learned on a
business?
manual, man. I learned on a manual typewriter in my high school. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You would do like type, 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 and it'd go and then type more. And it was not electric, man. So you had to push down really hard. Anyway,
Oh, really? Those buttons were tough?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I was gonna ask.
And I was the which had nothing to do with my mom really, but I was the best typist. I don't know why. I just was the best in the class. And so they
Really?
used the office
Okay, flex.
downstairs. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like I made the fewest mistakes. I could just go along. I was quite fast, but not the fastest, but I rarely made mistakes. So the office at the high school would send stuff off to the typing teacher, and very often during class, he'd just pull me aside and be like, "Hey, listen, man, you can you why don't you work on this? Can you retype this for them?" Because, you know, when you made a
I got
mistake,
you, got
you
you.
had to have like this correcting paper, and then you'd
Uh-huh.
have to go back and you'd retype the letter, and the correcting paper would put white out on top of it, you know?
Okay.
And so it would put white and it would delete the letter, so to speak, but it didn't really delete it. It just put this white ink on it. And then you'd go back and retype it again. But if you held a piece of paper up that had lots of mistakes in it, you hold it up to the light, it really didn't look very appealing. So the ideal would be to write a full page letter or a document and not have any mistakes. And then you hold it to the light and say, damn, look at that. That's a work of art right there, man. Because your
So you would
fingers,
retype that whole thing,
yeah, yeah.
so it looked
So,
like
and
that
sometimes,
perfect
you know,
piece.
I'd start, you know, you start a document and on the first couple lines you made a mistake and you just start over again. But when you get down toward the bottom, man, you were just like, gotta rock that thing to completion with no mistakes. So anyway, that
Well,
was the thing that I would do in high school. Little did the guy know though that I would one of the reasons I could zoom in like that is because I was stoned. You know?
yeah, that was your secret sauce right there. Wait,
Dude,
so you'd be like this.
I was in a zone, man. I was just like, yeah, yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's amazing. But you had to press something for it to go.
No, you take it's called the carriage. So the carriage is what the paper was on. You know, the carriage would move along, and then the keys would hit, and the carriage is like this, right? It's moving along. The paper's rolled around it, and it's moving, and then, or it's going this way, this way, this way, this way, and then you go boom, and you bring it back. It's got a little lever on it, and so you bring it back, and then it comes this way. You're typing, and then you
Wow, that is so interesting. Wait, someone's at
yeah.
my door. That is cool. I want a
Yo,
typewriter. Do you have any at home?
yeah, I don't. Jeff can find a photo. Jeff, can you find a photo of a old manual typewriter?
Sure.
A
You don't have
rotary.
any, Sam?
I was gonna say, Sam, you probably thought you were going really fast, but since you were stoned, I could just imagine the SpongeBob clip where he takes forever to write the word "the." You thought you were writing all this stuff, but in fact, you wrote a single sentence.
Yeah, yeah, one never knows, man. Yeah,
Manual typewriter. Hold on, bringing it up.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so here we go. The next Ian from Kansas City also is asking, does anything change for you in the class? Is an elective or a core course? Oh, that's a good question for students. Yeah, a lot of so it a place like Penn State usually you have two GPAs, and when you apply to graduate school or something like that, you often have two GPAs, and one is in your major GPA, like your core major courses, and the other are your electives or other. And you have electives, you have your major courses, your elective course, and then you have these general education courses, which is what mine is for a lot of people. We have to take a course on that involves international issues or U.S. cultural issues, or that's a science course. Everybody has to take at least two science courses at Penn State. So like astronomy and biology and chemistry or something, right?
Mm.
And you have to take two English classes, right? There you go, man. See that little, oh, you can't see it.
Wait, hold on. I'm on the thing. I can.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, so how it works is in your major courses, say Penn State, you have to get a C or above. You can't get a D in a major course. If you do, you have to take it over again. But you could get a D in an elective course and even a gen ed course. That's not a problem. But if you get a D, you have to get a B in some other course because you have to graduate with a 2.0. At Penn State, I don't know if that's true everywhere, but I suspect it probably is. Anyway, so the core courses are the courses where you're kind of maybe paying attention a little more. And a lot of times people just take these gen ed courses because Penn State tells you have to take one, and you're like, oh my God, this is stupid. Why do I have to do this? I'm not interested in it. But luckily with my course, it is a gen ed, but luckily it's interesting enough that when
Yeah.
people take it, because they have to take it, they get something out of it. But there are other gen ed courses that people take that, they're not, it's not particularly interesting to them.
Yeah. I wasn't a fan of my geology class too much.
Yeah. Geology.
Mm-hmm. You're studying rocks.
Yeah. Look at that, man. There you go.
What, the
But
typewriter?
this one, yeah, this is manga, but I don't see the lever on it that you send it back. But yeah, I'm looking at. Anyway, it's yeah. I don't know if you can see that.
No, I see it. Yeah, it's Jeff sent it on Slack. So
Yeah.
yeah,
All
it
right.
looks
So listen,
good.
man. Let's
That's
go to
that's
the.
a high grade typewriter right there.
Dude, it's high grade, man. I'm telling you, it was really cool. But you strengthen your fingers on that stuff.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
it also
What?
really taught a sense of concentration. Like you really, you have to concentrate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now for
Was
me,
it?
that's on the left side, but for me, the little carriage arm would be on the right. I hit it with my right hand, I think. Maybe I hit
Yo,
it with my left hand. How would I not know that?
where's the Windows button on this?
The Windows button? Yeah, dude. It's there. Yeah.
Where's
It's there. You just
the
can't see
screen
it.
brightness button?
It's in the screen. All right, man. Let's do this. Cry. Let's go to the next question. Cry commented, the amount of students assuming everyone cheats and using that to justify their own cheating is wild for me. I know it's wild for me too, man. But that's how it is with cheating on our taxes. Like, oh, everybody cheats on their taxes, so therefore I will. Everybody speeds, so I will speed as well. Harsher punishments for cheating, if possible, is welcome. Catch them, let them dig their own educational graves. Let the consequences start now early and make our workplaces better for the future. There is a definite moral bankruptcy apparent here. Yeah, well, I think that's true in large part in lots of aspects of society.
If you watch our
Lots
videos
of restaurants cut corners and use cheap ingredients. And so we will also, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. I mean, that's just part of it. We look around and we see other people. Yeah, we imagine that other people are doing the things that we also want to do.
And
So
are people afraid to fall behind, like specifically for the cheating thing? Like people are afraid if they don't cheat, they're like, I won't get the job I need to get,
yeah,
because this
yeah,
dude's cheating and he's gonna he'll
yeah.
get the
That's
job
kind of
because his GPA is better.
That's to a degree what people said. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
All right, let's do the next
Mhm.
one, and then we have a question from class. Loxley commented, well, college is certainly wasting my time and money, forcing me to take gen eds and do nothing with my major. Well, I thought this was going to be more of a class about using GPT in the classroom. I wish this will be revisited. Yeah, we might go that, but here's the problem. I'm going to respond to this, Loxley here. College is wasting my time and money. Well, here's the thing. At a place like Penn State's a really, really large school. We have a lot of gen eds and we have a lot of electives. And what we were talking about yesterday in class, Elijah's critical thinking.
Mhm.
And so, having gone through Penn State, if you want to, we want to produce students who have a wide range, have the ability to think, think
Mhm.
about lots and lots of things. Like this is the goal, right? You got to be able to think about all sorts of things. So when somebody tells you, you know, there's tariffs are good and you should vote for me because I'm going to support tariffs. Well, you should have the ability to at least have some basic understanding of what that is, so that you can vote the best possible way for society at large, right? So
Yeah.
therefore you take an
So,
econ class,
mhm,
and you could take an econ class with a really good professor who would turn you on and open you up and make you want to read an article about tariffs, or you can take an econ class with someone who's not that exciting and kind of like, eh.
mhm.
So if you want to take the econ class, find the econ class with the professor who's really thoughtful and really smart, Elijah, you can find that person, right? It's not that difficult.
Right. Uh, you're asking me?
Yeah, yeah,
Can I find that professor?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I guess I could go and rate my professor and check
Yeah, you
to
talk to
see
other
what the
people.
reviews are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could.
You
Yep,
talk
and
to
I
other
would talk.
people, you hear
Yep.
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could visit a
Mm-hmm.
class. Like I have students who will come sit in on my class. They don't do it so much anymore because it's on YouTube, right? But they
Right.
used to come sit in. Hey, I've heard about this class, but I wanted to sit down on it, make sure that I want to take it next semester. And yeah, I felt challenged. So this is good. So what Loxley is saying is like, you wasting my time and money. No, actually, you've wasted your time and money by not finding out where the really good gen eds are. And you do nothing with your major. You have like 10 major classes. So if you took only your major classes, you could be finished with college in 1 year. Like you take all your major classes, you're done. 1 year. There you go. Here's your college degree. Because you only take 10. You got to take 40 classes at a university. So therefore, like you
Is it
have
40?
to take more, man. Like shit.
Yeah.
That's
Have
a
you ever
that's a really unsettling statement when I hear a student or somebody say that.
have you ever looked at your Rate My Professor? Is that a thing you pay attention? I know you probably don't pay attention to that, but have you
No, I
ever?
don't pay attention to it at all. And I'm like, if you want to look at me, just look at comments and videos. But
Right, right, right.
yeah, I don't pay attention to that in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
No.
Well, some blurbs about
Some are
you.
funny, probably.
We've got amazing lectures. Some tags. Top tags are amazing lectures. Skip class, you won't pass. We've
Yeah.
got inspirational.
All right. Okay. I'm
We've got
inspired.
hilarious.
Okay. Hilarious. Okay. That's pretty good.
And we got
Well,
respected.
hang on. Hilarious could be good or bad. I could be, it's hilarious they let this knucklehead teach a class.
Could be that. But no, I think they're talking about your stand-up. That's what they're talking about.
All right.
That's funny. Okay. Just
I
thought
like
I'd
it
give
when
you that.
someone gives a really bad review that's really funny, like funny bad reviews. Like you ever see people reading tweets about them? That's pretty funny. Yeah.
There's one. I'm reading one. Okay. Do you wanna hear one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is November 6th, 2025. It's recent. Okay. This person said, "I am a left libertarian, and I do not care for this professor. Contrast his style with that of an exceptional intellect like Chomsky. The man literally encouraged his students to watch gay pornographic material in class. Unprofessional at minimum. Students will love him
Well, I
and think
didn't
they have learned."
technically do that. Well, I technically,
Yeah,
but there was a. Oh my god! Yeah.
that's
Funny.
awesome.
I
The problem is like, come on, man. You got two. What do we have? 3 hours times 3 hours a week times 15 weeks. So you got basically 40 to 42 hours, about 40 hours of class time, right? You better come up with a long list of problems with 40 hours of class time. I didn't like it when he said X. Well, okay, well there you go. That's like 30. Now you still have 39 hours and 59 minutes and 30 seconds You know what I mean? That was 30 seconds of 40 hours. So like, okay, what else do you got? And, this is exactly why I don't read I never read comments from students. I would get them.
Right.
I get big stacks of them and they would go right in recycling. And one
Mm.
semester, maybe a couple different semesters, I saved them because I thought, maybe one day I'd like to read these. And when I cleaned up my office a year ago, I found them in my file cabinet. This whole, like, there was a big stack, 2 different stacks about this big of these written 1-page papers. And I ended up just throwing them out. I didn't even look at them. I didn't have time.
Well, we can balance it out with one good one. All right.
All right, go with one. Well, even the good ones, or I don't read the good ones either. They don't mean anything,
No, and I think it's respected that you're not paying attention to that, and you're just staying the course.
All right, give me a good one. Give me a good one.
I highly suggest for Penn State students to take this class. Sam is a really fun dude. He cares so much for people, and it shows how he teaches. It shows in how he teaches his class. He cares about every single person in the room. As a far left-leaning person in a good environment, the right questions need to be asked, and he asks them in a respectful way that isn't mean-spirited. And then you say that you're not trying to get people. You're not trying. You don't want those gotcha moments, and that's recognized.
All right, okay, that's cool. All right,
Yeah.
well,
I think there we go. That's the RateMyProfessor over there.
So, although I did look at a photo of me that I had on my phone, and I was like, I sent it to a buddy of mine. I said, "Damn, dude! At least in that one photo, you were pretty cool." All right, listen, man. Can we go with? Listen, can we, Jeff? You guys, we have somebody from class.
Yes, Logan. Let's bring him in.
Yo, man, Logan.
What's up, Logan?
Wait, Logan's muted, so we gotta
Hello.
Yo, Logan, what's up?
Class,
Yeah,
studying,
yeah.
homework.
Wait, so you're a student?
Yeah.
You're a student in Social 118 right now?
Yes.
Oh, dude. All right, man. All right, cool. What'd you think of class yesterday?
It was interesting. It was engaging, and it's a class. Not all of them are going to be enthralling, but that's not the requirement of a class.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, and you don't have to say you liked it either, by the way. It doesn't matter. Because I liked it, so and that's all that really matters. Yeah.
There was part of the class. Oh.
What did you get? What did you take away from it?
So what I took away from it was that I don't think we talked about critical thinking much at all in that class. Right? We talked about what critical thinking meant for the students that were participating, but we didn't really talk about the difference between regular thinking and critical thinking. I found a lot of the examples that the students listed of examples of critical thinking were just, like, to me, like regular thinking, things that you just do as a human that exists and moves through the world, tackling, the quote unquote problems you run into on a daily basis.
You mean like when somebody says something about like going outside and not being prepared for the weather?
That's I don't see that as critical thinking. I see that
I agree with you.
The most basic, like an animal could determine whether it's cold out and they need to add extra, fluff to their down coat, like birds add extra air pockets to their down coat to stay warmer.
Dude, that's cool. Yeah. I agree with you. And what you'll find is that sometimes I get lost in a moment. I was going to say that at some point, like, hang on, but those examples, those few examples that people gave were pretty fast, and we got past them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So, but I'm with you on that. And sometimes I'm careful about, especially in the beginning of the semester, I'm really careful about letting the conversation just sort of go where people are going to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I have to do that, but I'm 100% with you, man. Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
And then the other thing I noticed was students seem to have this idea that in class they weren't critically thinking. And to me, right, they talked about, when you're in class, you're just writing down from the board onto your paper, your
Yeah.
professor's just presenting to the board. And at least from my perspective in college, that has happened in a few classes, but a majority of them have been classes where I am engaged, I am asking the professor questions, the professor is, doesn't seem to be irritated answering my questions. There are classes where I have to think actively about the content, because if I just write it down, I'm not going to be able to do well on my exams.
Yeah, but which classes are those, right? Because you're not, if you have a class of 50 people, not everyone's going to be doing that. Like, you can't do that.
No, but I don't think it's on the professor when you have a class where a significant portion of students aren't super engaged in it, because in a class of 50, that's sort of the expectation. And I see that in classes, so I'm an electrical engineering student. You have classes which are much smaller, and the classes that are much smaller tend to be classes where students are, the same level of engaged as they are in the 50 plus student section.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
what's the average size? What year are you, by the way?
I'm a senior.
So what's like on average when you're taking your upper level engineering EE classes? What's the average class size?
The average class size, depending on what course it is, the level 400 classes tend to be as low as 17, but up to like 30.
Yeah.
And then your 300 level, like core engineering classes, can be up to 100, but mostly are around 60 to 40.
Yeah. So if you want, for example, right, I mean, in your upper level classes with 17, 20, 25 people, you can really engage. And then they're designed, the E classes are really designed to be work around problem solving, right? Because you have to learn that. That's part of what EE is about at that level. Like if you didn't get some stuff at the core level, you're not going to be able to engage in the problem solving.
You're not.
And your professors know that. But the problem is now when you get to the core classes, a few students can really engage, but then you become the students that raise your hand all the time. And then you can do that, but not everyone can do that. And so then we're stuck in this world of just being like, all right, man, they can get the same grade as you, but without ever engaging at the level at which people really need to engage.
Yeah, but I find that engaging is a decision made on the part of the student. Like every course I've been in, there has been enough time in the class for students to ask a lot more questions of the professor. Almost every class I'm in is that situation. They just choose or decide not to take advantage of that all the time.
Well, okay, but let me ask you this. Have you taken like intro to psych?
No.
Did you take intro to Soc or anthropology or something?
The largest class I took was like Chem 110 or Physics 210.
Wait, but what'd you take for your gen eds?
I'm taking them all currently.
Oh yeah, what do you have?
All gen eds.
Oh, so that's what you're in this class.
Yeah.
What other classes do you have?
I have alcohol history course. I have a course on.
Oh, wait, you have the class with Kurt.
Right,
the alcohol class.
Yeah,
it's anthropology, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but what about that? Like yeah. Oh yeah, okay, right. But again, like in those classes, like there's not this space. The university has designed this thing that you can't engage. It's like, well, here, look, you're now talking to me, right, during office hours, but. You can't really do that in class. In these big classes, you can't do that. So you're
I found that all of these courses I've ever been in almost always have office hours that not a lot of people show up to. Or when people do show up to, there is still plenty of time to, converse with your professor. I mean, this class included, right?
Yeah.
Like you teach a 700 plus person course.
Yeah. Yeah. And I design it so that I design it. So I used to have office hours.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Wait, hang on. Can you hear me now?
It's on my end.
Hang on. How about Can you hear me now? Are we good?
Might be on my end.
I think it's at your end.
It's on my end. Tell me.
Hang on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let me keep talking, and then we'll see. I'll tell a story. I used to have office hours on Wednesday afternoon. So like today, I always have office hours Wednesdays. I don't know if yeah. So Logan's going to pop out and come back. I used to have office hours on a Wednesday afternoon. I would start at like 1 in the afternoon, and then eventually I would have to just keep moving that up because so many people came, and sometimes I would start at 11, and I would go till 5 o'clock, and sometimes I'd be there till 6 o'clock, and Lori would be calling me on the phone. She'd be like, "Dude, have you left your office yet?" I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm coming, man, I'm coming." And then, so it would end up being like 6 to 8 hours of office hours of students just coming in with questions, nonstop questions. And I would just answer the questions. And so if you wanted to come, you could come. And sometimes students would hang out there. I would have, like 6 people in the office, and sometimes it'd be one. Sometimes somebody had something really personal to talk about. So I'd have to kick everybody out, talk to them. But the students who wanted to engage could really engage. And so I would tend to agree with what Logan's saying, that, well, if you really want to, you can, but the education system is designed, though, not around that critical thinking. It is designed around memorize.
And the education, oh, he's froze for a second.
Go ahead.
Sam, you froze for a second.
Wait, I froze?
Yeah, he froze unless it was me, but
yeah, he froze on my screen too.
Got it. So you said the education system, what?
No, it still is designed to, like, look, it's a mass production machine. And so, the ideal world, if you want to go to a really small school, you can find a small school where you have classes of 15 to 20, every single class. And man, it's just critical thinking left and right. It's cool. But in a mass production machine, you got to figure out how to get these grades out as quickly as possible to as many people as possible and make it happen. That's kind of what you got to do, so.
And so would that mean,
yeah.
But that mean there's like no incentive, because like you as an instructor, I'm pretty sure like you take responsibility on like building rapport, and like how much there's not much incentive for like professors to maybe build rapport or like establish trust to like, or like what responsibility do you put on yourself to make sure you remove those certain types of boundaries so people feel comfortable to come to you, to roll into office hours? I'm not sure if that's like a part of the equation to get students to want to come rather than the ones that are just so engaged, the ones that are more just naturally engaged to come to office hours without needing any of those extra things. But like what responsibility do professors have to build that trust, to build that rapport, to, to create a space for students?
Well, okay. So here,
yes.
We're told that you need to meet 2 to 3 hours a week, whatever, for every class. I don't know. There's certain things that we're told. Wait, hang on. That's true. I just ran a speed test, by the way, and my speed is a little bit slow. I think we got a weather system coming in here. I'm like 213 over 20. By the way, 213 down, 20 up.
20's a little low.
Yeah. So, we're encouraged to have as many office hours as possible. But the problem is for somebody like me in a class that large, it's like, man, I set it up so we get people's class questions addressed as quickly as fast as possible. That's what Julie does. So we do that. But in terms of getting access to me, like, oh my God, it takes so I will do it. I'll talk to anybody who wants to talk, but you have to push through it. So Logan, you sound like a guy, like a student who's going to push through and be like, no, I gotta talk,
Yeah. Well, because I don't know, I'm an in-state student, but I'm paying a whole lot of money to be here, and
Yeah.
I'm thankful I am, and yeah, this should be a good investment for me long term. I've got a job lined up, and I'm happy, but I'm spending a whole lot of money for my classes, and I sort of would hope to get help with them. I would hope to get, a professor assisting me when I have questions about material, and when I have, issues with a homework problem. I expect to be able to, go to office hours and discuss the issues with that problem set with the professor, because that's what I'm paying for. And so far, I've gotten that at pretty much every class I've taken.
Yeah, well, you'll get it from everybody. You'll be hard pressed to find some professor that will say like, "Hey, go away, you're annoying." And yeah, if you want it, but what happens, man? So whatever happened to you is unique, because what happens in this educational system that I have experienced is that people just slowly over time start to tune out, and they don't make a demand, and they don't even have they don't even know that they could talk to their professors, and if they can talk to them, they don't even know what they would talk to them about. And so then it's just the system-wide tuning out process, and that's where the lack of critical thinking comes in, because the whole thing just sort of dies, and that's unfortunate. So yeah, it sounds like you're doing what you should be doing, man. What I would
So-
what I would want my kid to be doing.
My question then is, if I'm unique, why, like, what makes me unique? Why aren't other students like this? Because if other students were like this, the system would have to be redesigned, because professors wouldn't
Yeah.
have enough time to be a professor.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know what makes you unique like that. What makes you say, I see that at the university, professors, the ability to access these people whose job it is to think about these issues, the ability to access them is the best part of a college education. So I'm going to take advantage of that. Why are you taking advantage of it and so few other students are? I don't know. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, I really don't know. Yeah. But, and mind you, if I went back to the way I used to do this and say, hey, Wednesdays, all day Wednesdays, I'm going to start at 9 in the morning and I'm going to end at 5 o'clock. You can come to my office. I would have people waiting at my door the entire time. I mean, there would be a line of people waiting, because
Yeah.
there's, almost 800 people, right? It's like, okay, they're going to wait. But there would be, but 2/3 of the class or more, 75%, maybe 80%, would never, ever show up at my office. They'd just be like, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't need that. I get it. I'll listen to this knucklehead in class. And then you got to ask, why wouldn't they show up, man? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know why. I don't know why. Huh.
I just think I think that's a interesting question to think about, because I don't know if that's the nature of being a large school or a small school, but like, did we self-select into those categories, or is it, part of a trained response from the environment we are in?
I don't know, man, but what I'm going to predict is it's not surprising. First off, you don't need help with social 19. You'll get an A in 119. That's just for sure. So that's irrelevant, right? You'll get an A in the alcohol class. That's irrelevant. That's not an issue. I can just tell by talking to you, right? It doesn't surprise me that you already have a job. Okay, that you've done what you need to do to go find a job. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not surprising. All right, well, your GPA is probably pretty high. Like, okay, that's not surprising. Yeah, I just see you're kind of unique, and lots of parents would like to think that their child is like you, But the fact is, most students they're just sort of moving along. Yep. Just like my mom did with me in school. She often would, if she even asked to look at my report card, she would just be like, well, did you pass everything? I'd be like, yeah, I passed. Like, okay. The assumption was that my teachers would teach me everything that I needed to know. And I'm like, no, man, that's not what happens. But my mom she didn't go to college. My dad graduated 8th grade. But he was more like me. He took college classes, but he didn't graduate high school, right? But he never obviously graduated college. And but yeah, people just assume that the school system will do whatever it needs to. What do your parents do, by the way?
My dad, by trade, is an engineer, but he currently works in technology.
Okay.
He's head of the office of the CIO at a company, so he works on project management for technology
Good.
projects.
All right,
And then,
that's not surprising to me either, man. Go
and then
ahead.
my mom got a degree in geology, then became a pilot, then became a nurse, then got a master's in nursing, and then became a pilot again.
Oh shit, bro.
Flies
Okay,
for
well, no
Delta now.
wonder you are who you are, man. You know what I mean? I mean, you got your mom way more than your dad. She does this, and then she does that, and then yeah, man, you grew up with that. I grew up with a mother who was an administrative assistant. She was a secretary for somebody. Okay. She was a bookkeeper and type, but she worked out of the home. And my dad had been a salesman selling medical equipment for this company called the McKesson Company. It was a really large medical products company. They still exist. And but he was like me. He was always, he has some patents. So he was an inventor. He was always inventing stuff and doing stuff. And then ultimately he was selling all these medical supplies made of plastics. And then he realized, you know what, man, I could make this myself. So he bought some equipment, taught himself tool and die, bought some machines, bought some property that had buildings on it, put these machines in this one particular building, and he had his own factory. He was making the stuff that he used
This
to
is your father?
selling. That's my dad.
Yeah.
Never having gone to high school, right? But he was like me. He was always thinking outside of a box, like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. And then he had inventions, like he has patents. So
I'm working on one. We'll see how that turns out. With work, we're working on a patent for an automated rail vehicle.
Okay, dog. That doesn't surprise me either then. So listen, people aren't like you, man. Your classmates are not like you. Right. And so your question is just like, why aren't they like me? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Why aren't they? Why aren't people more like you? Why don't more people? I don't know, man. I don't know. Doesn't get it. Well, part of it is family, right? You have these two parents they've offered you opportunities. The biggest opportunity they've given to you, is a stable place.
Correct. Yeah.
You got your own room, you have your desk, you have a computer, you've always had that, you have stability. And number two, you've had these two parents that you watch do these things that are really, really cool, especially watching your mom make these changes.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah, man. When Elijah here, where was your dad when you were, how old, 5?
When I was 5, when I was 0 and 2, my dad was in prison.
He was in prison. All right. So okay, but later he got out of prison. So like
later,
later,
he same 9th grade education, like didn't graduate from high school, got his GED inside of prison, and then worked his way up to a manager at like Eckerd, and then he started training people inside of gyms, and now for the last 20 years he's had his own personal training business, and
which
he's
is cool.
thriving. Yeah.
And here you are, you're thriving, right? Because you have this guy, like you see that. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. Anyway,
the models in our lives are so important.
Oh man.
The model.
The other thing that's always interested me about myself is that I have ADHD, and I have my entire life, and it's a sort of a runs in the family sort of thing. And I've always wondered if that makes me how I am,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's me having it that made me who I am, or
Mm.
if I would have ended up like this had I not had it to begin with, right? Because I've read a whole lot about ADHD, and the likelihood that you graduate from college is substantially lower, and your likelihood of finding a job in a technical field is more difficult, and it's a lower probability of doing it. And I've always wondered, like, if I didn't have it, like,
Yeah.
would I do more? Like, what?
Yeah. Who would you be? Is it because of that that makes you who you are? Yeah, that's a really cool question. Dude, the very fact that you're asking those kinds of questions is part of what makes you who you are. So, yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
So
cool.
then, to bring it all back, is that critical thinking?
Yeah, totally, dude. Your brain doesn't stop. Okay.
No,
You're a person whose
unfortunately.
brain doesn't stop. My father's brain didn't stop. Okay.
There was
My brain didn't stop. So
there was the question in class, which was like, could you turn off your brain? Or it was along the lines of that in class yesterday,
yeah,
where it was like, could you turn off your brain, or could you slow it down? Sometimes I want to. Sometimes it's
yeah,
moving too fast, and I needed
yeah,
to chill out.
yeah, yeah. Same here. Yeah, same here. But that's what
Um,
but that's really but that's what makes teaching so cool, right? Like we get to meet so many different people and so many different people who are different from us and similar to us. And I don't put down the students who are not engaged in really thinking in these deeply critical ways. It's like, well, that's what life is. You know what I mean? Most people are not on this earth to be thinking all the time. That's not what we're doing. That's not why we're here. And thank God we're not, because we need people to do a whole wide range of jobs, right?
yeah.
So that's okay. But yeah.
'Cause
Well, good for
as
you.
humans,
Hey,
what
where are
made
you
us
from, by the
special?
way?
I'm
Well,
from
wait,
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
you're from Pittsburgh? Wait, what was your
Yeah.
question? Is what made us special is?
As humans, what made us special is we sort of devoted 100 watts of body output to our brains working all the time. That's
Yeah.
sort of what made us unique to begin with, and that's why we need to wear a jacket when we go outside to not be cold.
Yeah,
Most
yeah,
animals have
yeah.
that built in. Most animals don't
Yeah.
need to wear a jacket.
Yeah, yeah. We just got that. Yeah, that's why we're thinking about that stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Well, that's good, man. Good for you, dog. I appreciate
Yeah.
what you're saying, and I really yeah, I appreciate having you in class, man. You'll have to come hop back on office hours at some point.
At
And
some
for
point,
sure
yeah.
volunteer. Did you apply to volunteer?
I have the page up right now. I'm about to fill it.
All right.
Nice.
Okay. Wait, did I talk to you right after class
Yes,
yesterday?
you did.
Oh, you're the tall guy.
Yes.
The tall one.
You know.
Dude, how tall are you? Like 6'3"?
I'm just under 2 meters.
Yeah. Right.
6'5.5".
Yeah.
Wow, let's go.
Yeah, I know my neck was getting sore looking up at you. I had to step back a little bit.
And my neck is bad from looking down all the time.
Yeah, yeah, I'll bet, man. All right. Yeah, all right. Well, listen. Yeah, that's cool. Hey, thanks for hopping on, man. I really appreciate
Yeah,
Of
it.
course.
thanks, Logan.
Yeah.
Of course.
All right.
And
And
I'll see you tomorrow in
will be
class.
tomorrow will be interesting. Yeah.
What's
I-
Right,
what's
the
our
sign-
topic for next class?
Well, the topic differences. Yeah, we're going to engage in race and ancestry.
Okay,
Yeah.
that should be
Have some cool
interesting.
conversation.
We might have to recruit Logan as a facilitator. You know, he's gonna
Yeah, well, he's
facilitate
graduating. He already has a job, dude.
Yeah,
never mind.
I'm gone soon.
See, his
Unfortunately,
problem
he
with dudes
grabbed
like
it.
him is they wait and they take when they take gen eds late in their career, then they stumble upon 119. And then, of course, 119 is more interesting for you, right? Because you've had all this experience.
Yes.
And you're older, you've been thinking about things. And so that means you can really sit back and you trust yourself, right? You'll do fine on these exams. So you can just really sit back and just think.
That's
Yeah.
why I took all my gen eds late, is because my electrical engineering courses are difficult, and not to say that Soch 119 isn't difficult, but it's not as hard as my linear systems class, right?
No, dude, it's not difficult at all. If your memory is pretty decent and your concentration ability is slightly above average, and you put things in your just to show up to class twice a week, you're fine. You're doing great. Yeah. But you'll be surprised at how many people can't do it, because that's the social, because succeeding at a university is more social. There are more social and psychological bumps in the road than intellectual. People they don't have the money, so they got to work 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, just the emotional pressures of waking up every single day. And
I know I'm very lucky that my parents, as long as I keep my grades above a certain mark, they've agreed to help assist, in paying for college and giving me basically an interest-free loan for it. So I'm, extremely grateful for that. And I feel like, to fail class when they've given me that would be to let them down, right?
dude, yeah, imagine that, and let yourself down. Like, you got to take the class over again. But but I have a lot of students who they struggle, man. They got stuff going on. They can't get out of bed. Well, with my class, if you can't get out of bed at 3 p.m, you got a lot going on, man. But
yeah,
but it's hard, man. It's hard. People are struggling. People are feeling stressed. Climate issues, political issues. I mean,
we got the big snowstorm coming.
Yeah, man. People hear that. They're like, oh my God, another problem. And it's hard to be 20 years old. Yeah. All right. Listen, man.
All right.
Logan, be well. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah,
Of
it was
course.
a pleasure, Logan. Thanks.
All right, man.
See you guys.
Okay. All right. Ciao.
Peace.
Bye.
What a cool dude.
That's cool. I like having those conversations. I like meeting students like that.
That should happen more often on here. I feel like we should have like segments. You know what I mean? You have a little spin wheel. Just really trick this podcast out.
Dude, let's do it, man. Okay, make that happen.
All right, bet. Let's come up with a plan. You'll have to do that.
All right, man. Listen, let's go with I think we have a couple questions from class yesterday that didn't make it onto the stream. Jeff, are you there? Can you put them up? The one question number 10. First off, we have 9, so class number 3. Let me just respond to these quickly.
By the way, real quick, I think I got a C in your course.
Dude, good for you, man. That's why you're here. You got a C. You're still trying to make it up.
Yeah, I know. I could believe I don't think I don't know what I did.
C's earned degrees, my friend. All right. All right. So listen,
it's not what you did; it's what you didn't do. Technically,
yeah, it's what you didn't do. What you didn't do was come to class, because if you'd just come to class, you would have been all right.
I think I did. I loved class.
Well, then how'd you get a C? Like, how'd you get a C? Dude, you didn't get a C.
I did. I checked my transcript. It might have been the exam. Maybe it was the exams.
Maybe you didn't take an exam or something.
Yeah,
you just forgot to take one.
Because I did my dialogues. I showed up to all my dialogues.
Okay, you probably didn't. You probably missed an exam. And thankfully, you didn't ask us, oh, could I take the exam? We would have let you. That's nice. So you took responsibility for your C. All right, man. Meso6 says, should we always aim to think critically? Not necessarily, but critically, unless we're in a Buddhism class. And then we should aim to mirror the Buddhist way of thinking, which is just to be in balance. So it's quite okay to not think critically and engage. So what's the difference between thinking and thinking critically? So we kind of talked about that. Yeah. And I didn't yesterday. So what happened was a couple people gave examples like when I had to leave house and I left my house and I didn't have my jacket on. I'm like, okay, that's not what we're talking about with critical thinking, but I just let it move on. We just move beyond that and engage.
Right.
But Yeah, thinking critically is because the other side is what students said is like, look, you got a problem and you want to analyze this problem from a dozen different perspectives or whatever. It's the elephant and the blind scholars, basically, that's the difference there. Okay, Bob from Pacific Northwest says, where do you learn to critically think in a modern day? That's a really cool question. I don't know. You don't necessarily learn it. Maybe you learn it by just asking the questions that Logan was just asking, which is why my ADHD, like, is it the cause or is it the effect? And it's a million things like that. You find, I don't know, for me, Elijah, I want to hear from you.
Okay.
I think I learned to think critically because I think I'm born. I think it's part of my my structure of consciousness that everywhere I turn, I see questions that I want to answer. Everywhere I turn. So that means when I meet somebody somewhere, it could be out in public, it could be at a party or a gathering, it doesn't matter who it is that I meet. I find out what they do, and I just feel like, I got some questions for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I got questions for you, man. It could be a guy that or woman, somebody that puts up like gutters, I'm like, you install gutters? How long you been doing it? Like 30 years. Really? Okay, man, I got questions for you. In the gutter, when the water comes off the roof, do you calculate, like, how do you calculate? What do you do? I mean, I'm just going to come up with questions.
And it's like, what's the source of your curiosity?
I just
Like,
look,
where
I'm
does your
looking out my window
curiosity-
right now. Everything I see, I have a question about. Yeah. Everything I see.
Interesting.
I don't know what the source is, but I've
But
always
is
been
it
like
is
that.
it zest for life? Is it that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I'm wondering if my source comes from, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know
Yeah.
if that aligns for you, you know what I mean? Because you're like, if you have a zest for life, then things that you come into contact with might be more intriguing, or and then from there, there's passion and then curiosity. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know what it is, but I do know that I think human beings we're divided up. There are different types of people, whether we want to use the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, right. What are you? You're Myers-Briggs.
ENTP.
I'm ENFP. That's what they say. Okay.
Yeah, so
ENTP. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
ENTP is I know about the ENTP, but
it's a problem solver. It's like I'm like Steven. Yeah. Steven's already going into the gutter thing, it's like, yeah, yeah, man. I'm like, yeah, fuck.
it's extroverted, intuitive, thinking, perceiving, known as the
Yeah.
debater or the visionary,
Yeah.
characterized by being bold, innovative, logical, and adaptable, thriving on intellectual challenges and new ideas. So like challenges excite you?
Yeah, they really excite me. Yeah.
And new ideas.
Yeah. I'm
Struggle
watching
with
the guys cross the street. It's the middle of winter and they're putting a roof on. I'm like, whoa, okay, what do they got on their feet to keep from sliding off? Because there's a little ice there. Like, so what are they doing? How are they doing that? And wait, and they're gonna have little like tacks in the bottom of their shoes. Does it ruin the roof? Like, how are they doing that? You're like, what's going? Da-da-da. It's just like my brain doesn't stop, man. It
Right.
doesn't stop. But not everyone's brain works that way, and that's what makes it really cool. Like some
Right.
people are, and so everybody can't be like me,
And so it's like you're one part of your
Logan just said he's an ENTP also, yeah. But also, by the way, I sometimes depends on how I take the test. Sometimes I'm an INTP,
right,
because I'm kind of introverted.
and we change. Yeah. Uh-huh. That's so interesting. So like source
Wait,
for
what
you
are
is
you? INFP? What's F?
I'm an ENFP, so it's like
You know,
ENFP or a campaigner. Myers-Briggs, extroverted, intuitive, feeling, perceiving, known for being
uh,
warm and enthusiastic, creative,
yeah.
and people-oriented individuals who thrive on possibilities and deep connections, often acting as inspiring leaders, but sometimes struggling with follow-through or routine.
Dude, there you
Um,
go, man. That's you completely. You're definitely got the F part. And
the, f- the feeling.
yeah, the feeling
Yeah,
part. I have the T part, the thinking part. You know, like
right.
when Lori met me, which by the way, do you know that today marks the 40 years to the day, 14,600 days, 40 years to the day that Lori and I were first in each other's presence, man.
What?
Today. Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Sound effect?
Yeah, where's sound effects, man? Yeah. When she met me, the thing she used to say about me when she first met me was, well, Sam would be a really cool guy if he had feelings. Because I was always up here, you know? And
Wait, you said Sam would be what if
he would be a nice guy. He'd be a really cool guy if he had feelings. That's what she used to say about me.
that's hilarious because you're
Yeah.
always thinking.
Yeah, but she never said that about you. What she says about you is like you have like you're really deep, like you're deep in your feelings, like you're very passionate in this way. And yeah.
And the thinking, that's so fascinating. And that's that for you, like the thinking part is like, because I was thinking about this before we even started looking at Myers-Briggs. I was like, what is my source of curiosity? And I always like people. Like once I'm just interested in people, and like connecting with
Yeah.
others, and then
Yeah.
just understanding more about them, and then that's where I think the curiosity it streams down that path. But I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's so fascinating, and like connections, like to be able to just talk to when I was Ubering like that
Yeah.
woman, this sex
Yeah.
worker home, I was like, whoa, this is so fascinating to be able to connect with her on a level where she called me back and said thank you for driving me home. You know what I mean? Where it's just like,
Dude, and for
it's like,
me, I'd be having a conversation with when I meet people like that and I have conversations with them, it's always in my mind is like, oh, this is really interesting. I'm collecting information from this person. Oh, I can bring this back in the classroom. I can use this to say something meaningful to
wow.
students. It's all up
Yeah,
here in my head. And it's
that's
fun to
cool.
like connect with people. Like I like that. It's like, oh my God, this is really cool. I connected with this person. It's really nice. But that's not what
Yeah,
drives me, man.
and you're finding it's like the you're still finding value out of that person through what they're talented at or what they know, and
Yeah,
how
for sure.
you
Yep. I don't use people in that way. Like I really
no, 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 no,
authentically
no, that I
connect
was
with people.
afraid to
Yeah.
frame it
No,
that way.
no,
I was
no,
like,
no.
oh,
I
I'm not trying to frame it
no,
like
I
that.
got you. I wasn't thinking that you were, but yeah, sometimes it could appear that
No
way.
way. I
It
don't
does appear that way to people that I'm like, this guy he doesn't really want to know because he cares about me. He wants to know because he needs to fulfill the thinking part of his brain, which is partly true.
I think that's such a negative.
Well,
I don't like that framing. I feel like
well,
it's
no, but here's the other side is what people don't understand, but also is I always want what's best for the other whoever I'm interacting with, I want what's best for them. So like,
right,
hey, how can I will uplift somebody else way before I uplift myself, you know?
right, right,
So
right,
I
right,
could be
right,
someone I'm in
right,
competition with, but I would still uplift them before I would uplift me.
right.
Competition meaning like, I don't know, for a
And
job,
honestly,
promotion or something. I don't know.
to be passionate about like and knowing those things really upholds that person because they get to speak on what they're passionate about, what
True.
they know.
Yeah, that's
They get to share
yeah.
what they value, which honestly
Yeah,
at the end
yeah,
of
yeah.
the day, who doesn't like to talk about the things that they value or the things that they know? Like you get to put them in the position of the teacher in
Yeah. Yeah,
ways,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, Independiente del Valle fan. Wait. Are you- I want to know who that is. Yeah. By the way, yeah, God, I'm just thinking about the Lori thing. Did you know this was our 40th year?
I would try to find the
Right.
all sound effect.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do it. But that's wow. So 14,000. How many days?
14,600, man. Actually, there's so we had leap years, so you probably got to add 10 days to that. So
Wow. Does Laurie know this? Did she say?
yeah. No, we're gonna get together tonight and look at old photos. And so
Wow.
we have a date. It's date night for us.
That is so
Listen,
cute.
no, because 40 years ago, I was teaching class at like 10 in the morning, and that's where we first met. You know, well, she met
She was in
me.
your
I didn't
class,
really meet
right?
her. Yeah.
And she came up to your office hours because she was so
Yeah, but
frustrated.
she was so annoyed. But that was like 4 weeks later. But strangely enough, she had a boyfriend at the time who she was just breaking up with. She was like in her final days with this guy she had been with for almost 3 years, I think. But he came
Right.
to class with her on the very first day. And he got my phone number because he had questions for me about his job. He was wanted to change his profession
Wow.
and he didn't know. And so he called me like that night or the next night and we had a long conversation and about
You
like
guys had
what
a
I
long
thought
conversation.
with the guy that was her ex-boyfriend. I
Yeah,
mean, she
yeah.
had been with him, but she wasn't ex at that time, but but
That
then she
is,
broke up with him like just days later. Not had nothing to do with me, by the way.
yeah,
Zero.
yeah.
Like I was just some knucklehead who was randomly passing through her life. But
Uh,
then, it was weeks later that we connected. Yeah.
dang, Sam, I didn't know you were Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Yeah. Yeah. What can I say? It's my magnetic personality. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Feel you. Yeah, can you believe that? That's really funny.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
Laurie was one time telling me about a story about some notes from her childhood from a guy that she still had, and you were like, "Wait, what is this?" Because she still had it.
That was her high school boyfriend, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
her high school boyfriend,
He's very
and
sentimental in that way. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So am
remember that she
I,
was
by
telling me
the
about
way.
that story.
Yeah, I'm very sentimental. I have lots of
Mm.
things a lot of other people don't have. Um,
Like and up some buttons.
yeah, well, here, I'll show you. Hang on, man.
Yeah, what do you got?
Yeah. I have things that my mom saved. Here's a
Oh,
clay figurine. It's a bird that I made in like sixth grade. I mean, mind you, in sixth grade, I was not
that's
a
pretty good for a sixth grader.
nah, that's pretty simple, but whatever. But
Oh,
I
I
have
mean,
it.
I'm
I
not.
keep it. So I have a lot of stuff like this that I keep,
Wow.
that I'm just like, oh no, man, I like that. That's really cool.
I mean, that's from childhood. That's touching.
Here's another.
Honestly,
Here's another.
I have a few ceramics that I made for my mom that I still have too.
I was in Cub Scouts when I was in fifth grade or fourth grade. I don't know. Third grade. I don't know when it was. Maybe it was third grade, but I made this little Cub Scout hat.
Was that
Cub
the size of your head at the time?
Yeah, it's about the size of my head. See? And
You can
like,
put it on. You look like Timmy Turner.
yeah, I still have that. So there we go. I got a
Do
lot
you
of
know who
stuff
Timmy
like
Turner
that.
is?
No, no.
Jeff, you should put the picture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
because Timmy Turner has like a little hat that's always on his head.
It's a cartoon character.
Yeah, from the Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh, I think I might know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pink hat though, I think, or a red
Yeah.
hat.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna just read a couple more of these off.
Mm.
Whoa, what level of this is from Nix, says what level of critical thought needs to be applied before confirming our beliefs? Oh, there we go.
Wow, it's a good
Got
question.
you. It's the before confirming prior beliefs. I don't know, man. I find that the more I'm thinking, the more difficult it is to me for me to have any kind of beliefs. So maybe not too many. Don't think too much, or you won't believe in anything. Yeah, yeah. But prior beliefs. I mean, this is a thing, right? Like for example, most of us are the religion of our parents, and we hang on to that. It's like, well, hey, why?
I mean,
You know, like why? What's
mhm,
that? Most
and that
things.
makes me think about like acceptance and I don't know all those other things. Like,
Mhm.
but that
Okay,
would take us.
Tyson asks, when does critical thinking evolve into overthinking? It evolves into overthinking when you're not really bringing new paradigms into the analysis. You can't just keep spinning the same things over and over again. You got to bring completely different paradigms.
Mm,
Yesterday I gave the example of tariffs. It's like, nah, man, you can't keep listening to the same people saying the same things and be like, is it this or is it this? You got to step outside of that and get a completely different way of seeing, and then blow
mhm,
everything up and start over. That's
mhm.
one thing that has to happen. All right, we'll do one more, man. I don't know where the other two that we have are. Hang on. Oh man, hang on. All right, hang on. I see it on there. From Oregon, beliefs are not primarily thoughts you hold; they're commitments your identity is built around. Yeah, I like that. Humans don't reason their way out of most core beliefs; they reason from them. Yo, man, that's cool. That's cool. I like that. Cognition usually functions to defend coherence with the self rather than to evaluate truth. Dude, that's cool. I like that. Beliefs tied to identity bypass deliberative cognition and instead recruit from truth seeking and toward identity protection and social stability. I love that, man. Sam, can you say more about these points in regards to your class and the populace really not thinking critically, even though we all like to think that we do? Yeah, I think that, well, first off, Philosophaster from Oregon, you said it all right there. And uh, I think life is very complex. Just being able to get up every day and do what we have to do day after day after day and make everything happen. And it takes a lot to keep to have a stable and steady life, which is why a lot of college students, what we were saying to Logan, people struggle so much because, man, you're on your own for the first time, and like if you don't have a good relationships with your parents, you don't have someone you can call, they haven't thought to set you up with send you off to school with like a care package of food, so your first week there you're kind of taking care of it. If you don't have that, shit can be crazy, man. You don't have money for your very first phone bill, and like, oh my god, and then things just start spiraling, or it's really hard. So therefore, we will oftentimes, our belief systems or our thoughts, thinking takes a back seat because I don't have time for this. Whether it's visit a professor or really revamp
Mhm.
my entire way of thinking about the world. Tariffs, Donald Trump, Greenland. Oh, fuck, I don't know, man.
Mhm.
Whether my ADHD creates who I am or is caused by who I am, whatever it is, all those things, it's like, I don't have time for that, man. Just give me the diagnosis and like tell me how I can manage this kind of stuff. And like, I don't want to think too hard about it, because if I think too hard about it, things are going to start to fall apart. I'm going to drop balls, and like, I
So,
can't do that.
so this
So
like goes directly back to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
yeah, yeah.
essentially.
Hmm.
Like you can't get to this place of thinking because you're so focused on
Yeah.
the daily of what you have to. At
Yeah.
least that's how I was receiving what you were saying.
Yeah, I like that. Yep. And so here's this idea: beliefs tied to identity bypass deliberative cognition and instead recruit affective and social security. Yeah,
Wow.
circuitry. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so this shifts reasoning away from truth seeking and toward identity protection and social stability. Totally. And which is one of the reasons why I didn't want children. And I've always been really careful about how I spend my money because I never want to have to make money. I want to be making money something that happens in the course of my life. And I
Right.
save and I save and I save. So if there's ever a problem and I lose a job or something, I can always,
Right.
it's not going to completely throw my life in turmoil.
Right. But like you said, have to make money. That's where you're emphasizing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
To have to, it totally
Shit.
changes.
Yeah. Lori and I, we've always been like, we have a year's worth of bills, man. Let's get to a year. And then that's good. And that just sits there. And like, and this was going back when we didn't make very much money. We didn't have many bills. Our rent was $400 a month, so it's like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Identity protection. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool,
cool.
man.
Yeah.
Philosophaster. That's a really cool series of ideas, man. I love that.
Hey, I'm gonna call it a show here.
All right, let's do that.
And before we do, happy 75th birthday on Monday to Bob from the Pacific Northwest, and happy birthday tomorrow
Happy birthday, Bob.
to Ian from Kansas City.
Oh,
Birthday,
man,
Ian.
Birthday, Bob and Ian. Awesome, man.
And shout out to our tier 2 and 3 members. And of course,
And we have a cool. Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and of course, our sponsor, Ground.News.
Yeah. And we have a cool. We're gonna be back on Monday, by the way. Right? Are we saying something about that?
Sure. Yeah. So this week, obviously, Tuesday through Thursday. Next week will be Monday through Thursday with streams at 3:00 Eastern. On Monday, we'll have a special guest. We'll announce it on Instagram first. We'll do that. So go to our Instagram and
is that how it works? Like you got to follow us there if you want
guess.
to get the announcement.
on Friday morning, we'll send out the announcement of who it is. So,
dude, I love it. Okay,
Sweet.
Awesome. Looking forward.
And then happy 40th.
yeah,
and
man.
14,560th.
14,600. Probably in 10 days with leap year days.
Wow. 14,610 days to Sam and Laurie's
Energy coming together. Yeah.
energy coming together. Wow.
All right, y'all. Be well. Thank you, Jeff. I'm gonna go drop that piece of equipment up into Thomas right now. So,
all right,
man. I will talk. Peace.
Good stuff.
Be well, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully, we will not have an electricity
outage. Yeah.
Outage. Yeah, right before class starts. All right. Okay. Be well. Take care, everyone.